The year is 3030. On the new colony world of Aethyriones, 15 of the galaxy's leading frontier nations have gathered for something never before attempted, a true union of worlds. At its helm stand two of the galaxy's most renowned figures, Glibnora, a scientist whose brilliance is matched only by her honesty, and Gorgazama, the most tactical mind ever to lead a colony's security. Both have spent lifetimes earning the trust now placed in them.
Transfer ship is locked on approach vector. We hold confirmed arrival at 1500 AET that has not moved in the last 2 cycles.
And the perimeter for the landing bay? Is it sealed to council-cleared personnel only, or do we open it for the wider colony?
Cleared personnel only until the cargo is inside the museum hall. Landing Bay 1 stays locked down for the full transfer window. No exceptions, not even for press.
The containment field at the museum, I want it run through full calibration one more time before 1500. Not because I doubt the last check, because I don't like doubting it only once.
That's the 3rd calibration this week, Glibnora.
It's the 3rd time something this old has come anywhere near my colony. I'll run it as many times as it takes.
For what it's worth, I agree with her. These pieces have sat in vaults and private collections for longer than any of us have been alive. I'd rather we're cautious now than curious later.
No argument from me. Security detail will be in place at the museum a full hour before the ship lands. Plinth sealed, hall cleared, single approved entry point.
And the placement order? Has that been finalized? I recall there was some discussion over whether the human artifact goes center or flanking.
Center. Mimir's, well, anchors the room. The other 4 sit around it. That was my call as curator, and the council signed off on it last session.
Noted and logged. Glibnora, once your calibration's done, send the clearance to my team directly. I want confirmation in hand before that ship touches down, not after.
You'll have it within the hour.
Then I move we consider logistics settled, pending Glibnora's final field check.
Seconded. 1500 AET. Let's bring them home.
Baseline's clean. No ambient interference in the hull. Good, that's the easy part. I'm projecting the readout as I go. Full hologram feed, recorded. If anyone ever asks whether this was done properly, there'll be video proof, not just my word for it.
And the Hodopod.
Running the load simulation now. The eye's predicting how each of the 5 will sit once they're actually in the room together. It's never done 5 at once before. This colony's never held 5 at once before.
That blink, is that something?
That's noise. 0.5% drift on Plinth 4's projected load. Gone as fast as it came. Anything outside tolerance holds. That one didn't hold. It's nothing.
You sound very sure for someone who wanted a 3rd calibration this week.
I wanted a 3rd calibration because I don't trust anything I've only checked once. I trust this because I checked it twice now and it told me the same thing both times. That's different from sure.
Faye.
Resonance sweeps next. Checking the 5 don't end up able to sense each other through the field. Give me 4 minutes.
Keep an eye on the centiplinths. This one's still on my scanner from this morning.
Sweeps clean. All 5 channels isolated. No crosstalk. No drift outside tolerance anywhere in the field. That's a full pass, James.
So we're clear.
You're clear. I'm sending it to Gorgazama now. He wanted confirmation in hand before that ship lands, and he's got it.
1500, then.
1500. Let's bring them home.
Cargo transport, you are cleared for final approach. Landing Bay 01 is open and ready to receive.
I'm completely calm. This is my calm face. They're here.
I have waited 3,000 years for many things. I did not visibly unravel.
"15 years. 15 years I have waited for this moment. Do you have any idea what it took to get these 5 objects into one room?
You reorganized the plinths 4 times.
That is completely irrelevant.
You also reorganized the storage corridor.
Once. That was once.
Twice. I watched you do it twice.
The second time was a refinement. That is not the same thing.
You named the containment field projector.
Gerald is a perfectly reasonable name for a piece of equipment that size.
You brought Gerald a calibration report as if it were a gift.
It was a gift. Gerald needed to know the results.
You also brought Gerald flowers.
They were congratulatory flowers. Gerald passed the calibration test. That is an achievement.
Gerald is a projector, James.
A projector who has never once let me down.
The projector is not sentient, James.
You don't know that.
They are here.
Yes. After 3,000 years, they are here.
Gerald would have wanted to see this.
James.
I know.
They came as different races. Now they live as one. They call themselves the Aerintheans, a new race born from many.
We sit here as one, and we are the first race to hold artifacts in one place that represent just some of us. This is only the beginning. In the years to come, each of us will be presented in full. It has taken a long time, and a great deal of organization from all of us to be sitting here today, looking at what we have built together.
My name is Varric. I am Orvexian. You're looking at one of us right now, so you already know what we look like. Raw, unfinished, like someone started building us and walked away halfway through. That wasn't an accident. That's exactly how Orva left us. Because Orva didn't create things to be beautiful. He created things to be his. That statue is the only finished thing he ever made, himself. Polished, perfect. Everything else, us, the world, the rivers, all of it, left rough, because finishing us would have meant we were done needing him. He called himself our creator. What he meant was our owner. I'm not going to stand here, sit here, and tell you Orva was misunderstood. He wasn't. He knew exactly what he was doing. He liked being needed more than he liked us actually existing. So here's the truth plainly, the way my people deserve to hear it told. We don't honor Orva today. We survived him. There's a difference. And if any of you have ever had someone in your life who needed you broken so they could feel finished, you already understand exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's Orva. Lovely statue, terrible god. Next.
My name is Esu. I have chosen every word of what I am about to say. I want you to understand that. Choosing my own words is not something I take for granted. That is Natal's mirror. You look into it and you think you are seeing yourself. You are not. You are being seen. There is a difference, and my people learned it the hard way, over and over, for as long as we existed. Natal did not ask to enter your mind. He simply did. Your thoughts, your memories, the things you had never said aloud to anyone. None of it was ever only yours. He believed that thought itself belonged to him, the way some believe land belongs to them, or time, or another person's silence. I am not going to tell you what he took from me. That is the one thing I still get to decide. He doesn't get that anymore. None of you do either, and I mean that with no unkindness. Some things are mine now, only mine. That is Natal. That is the mirror. I would ask you not to look into it for too long.
My name is Sally. You're looking at me the way people always look at me. I know that look. I grew up being told it was the only thing about me that mattered. That is Daguna's flower. It never wilts. It never changes. It is exactly as perfect today as it was the day she made it. And that was the only kind of beauty she believed was worth keeping. I was beautiful enough for her. I want you to understand that, because it is the cruelest part of this story. I met every standard she ever set, and it still wasn't enough to be loved, only enough to be looked at. Nobody ever asked who I was underneath it. Not Daguna, not the people she taught to value what she valued. I could have disappeared entirely, and most of them would have only noticed the flowers were gone from the room. So here is what I know now, that I did not know then. Being seen and being loved are not the same thing. Daguna built an entire goddess out of confusing the two. Don't make her mistake. That is Daguna, flawless and utterly empty.
My name is Mavic. I'm Mavori. You can probably already guess what that meant growing up. We were built for war, bred for it, trained for it before we understood what it cost. That's not a trophy of respect. Don't let anyone tell you it is. That's something Panthea killed because it was there, and because killing it was easy, and because she was bored that day. She didn't hunt for food, didn't hunt for honor. There was no ritual in it, no preservation, no weighing of one life against another. Distance made it simple for her. She never had to look anything in the eye. I had friends, other species, beings she decided were lower than her, not worth the weight of a thought before she ended them. I watched that happen more than once. I'm not going to pretend I have made peace with it, because I haven't. It left something bitter in me that has never fully gone away. There is a particular kind of cruelty in killing something you don't even hate. Panthea didn't hate us. Hate would have meant we mattered enough to provoke her. We didn't. We were just convenient. So no, I won't stand here and call her great or honour her memory the way I'm supposed to. I'll tell you the truth instead. She took people I loved for sport and felt nothing afterward. That is who Panthea was. That is the skull on that plinth.
My name is James. I'm human, the only one in this room representing a god, so I imagine that already makes me a little different from everyone who has spoken before me. And I want to say something before I start, because I think it matters. I heard everything. Varek, Izu, Sully, Mavic. I felt the weight each of you is carrying up here, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't. This is Mimi as well, and Mimi was not someone was slaughtered for sport, or feared in our minds, or kept ourselves perfect for. Mimi was someone we honored. He took wisdom seriously. He took mediation seriously. Peace between people who disagreed. Preservation of what mattered instead of destruction of what didn't. He was, by every account my people kept, one of the genuinely good ones. That's not me being naive. I know exactly how that sounds after everything you've just heard. But for me, mythology was never just stories we told children. It was truth, dressed up so it could survive being passed down. And what happened at RAGNARÖK, that was exactly that. Truth, wearing a story's clothes. I could tell you the short version, the summary, but I don't think that's what this room needs right now.
Tell us the whole story.
Before I tell you how it ends, I need you to understand something. The gods already knew. That's the part most people miss when they hear this story for the first time. This wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a tragedy that caught them off guard. RAGNARÖK was foretold from the very beginning, woven into the world the same day the world was made. There were beings who could see it coming. The Norns, three sisters who sat at the base of Yggdrasil, the tree that holds up all of existence, and wove the fate of every god and every mortal into threads none of them could ever unpick. Even Odin, the highest of the gods, the wisest, the most powerful, had his fate written by hands that were not his own. He knew the day would come when everything he had built would burn. He knew which of his sons would die, and how, and in what order. He knew the names of the wolves that would devour the sun and the moon before they had even been born. He had a throne, Hlidskjalf, from which he could see across all 9 worlds, and from it, he watched his own ending approach, slowly, for centuries, the way you might watch weather gathering on a horizon you cannot outrun. And he did nothing to stop it, because some things, even gods understand, cannot be stopped. They can only be prepared for, met, when the day finally comes. He spent those centuries gathering warriors for it. Einherjar, he called them, the bravest of those who died in battle, chosen by his shield maidens, the Valkyries, and brought to his hall, Valhalla, to feast and train and wait. Every single day, they fought each other to the death in his courtyard, and every single evening, they rose again, healed, and feasted together as brothers. Preparing, always preparing, for one final battle they all knew they would lose. I think about that a lot. What it must be like to know exactly how your story ends, and to spend centuries building toward it anyway. To raise an army for a war you've already lost, because losing well still matters more than not showing up at all. It started with grief. It always does. Balder was the most beloved of all the gods, gentle, golden, impossible to hate, beautiful enough that light itself seemed to follow him. He began having dreams of his own death, and the dreams frightened the other gods enough that his mother, Frigg, took matters into her own hands. She went to every living thing in the world, fire, water, iron, stone, every disease, every animal, every tree, and made each one swear a sacred oath never to cause her son harm. And they did, every single one. The gods found it so amusing afterward that they turned it into a game, throwing things at Balder in the Great Hall, watching them bounce harmlessly away, laughing every time, because nothing in the world could touch him anymore. He had become, for a while, untouchable. Except Frigg had missed one thing, a small, unassuming plant that grew on the bark of an oak tree, too young and too harmless, she thought, to bother asking. Mistletoe. Loki found that gap. Loki always finds the gap. That was his nature. Half god, half something else entirely. Never quite trusted, always circling the edges of every hole looking for the one weakness no one else had noticed. He carved a dart from the mistletoe and brought it to Balder's own brother, Hr, who was blind and standing apart from the game, unable to take part the way the others did. Loki offered to guide his hand. Hr, wanting only to belong, to throw something at his brother the way everyone else was laughing and doing, agreed. Loki aimed the dart himself and guided Hr's throw. It did not bounce away. Balder died in that hole, in front of everyone, and something in the world cracked that never fully closed again. Frigg begged for his return. A messenger was sent down into the underworld itself to plead with the goddess who ruled there, and she agreed, on one condition. Every single thing in all 9 worlds had to weep for Balder, every last one. And nearly everything did, every stone and tree and beast, until they found one giantess, hidden in a cave, who refused. That giantess was Loki, in disguise. He alone would not weep, and so Balder stayed in the underworld, and the gods finally understood, with absolute certainty, who had killed him. They bound Loki for what he'd done, underground, in chains forged from the entrails of his own son, with a serpent placed above his face to drip venom onto him without rest, for the rest of time. His wife stayed beside him, catching what venom she could in a bowl, but every time she had to empty it, even for a moment, the venom struck him, and the whole earth shook with his pain. He did not forgive them for that. He waited, bound and burning, for centuries. And the winter came. Fimbulwinter, they called it, not an ordinary winter, but 3 full years of cold with no summer between them, no warmth, no relief, snow driving in from every direction at once. People say that's when it truly began to fall apart. Not the monsters, not the fire yet, but the cold, and what the cold did to people left alone with it for too long. Brothers turned on brothers, fathers turned on sons. Every promise, every kinship, every bond that had ever held the world together came apart in that darkness, long before a single battle was ever fought. Then the wolves that had chased the sun and moon since the beginning of time finally caught what they were chasing. Skoll swallowed the sun whole. His brother Hati swallowed the moon. The stars went out, one by one, like a great hall going dark room by room. And the things that had been bound, because even the gods had once known they were too dangerous to leave free, broke their chains at last. Fenrir, the wolf grown so large his jaw alone could stretch from earth to sky, broke the binding the gods had tricked him into wearing all those years ago. Jormungandr, the serpent who had circled the entire world beneath the ocean for so long he had nearly forgotten he was anything else, rose up out of the deep, and the whole sea came with him, flooding every shore. A ship built entirely from the fingernails and toenails of the unburied dead, Naglfar, broke free of its moorings and set sail, crewed by giants who had waited a very long time for this day. And from the south came Surtur, a being made entirely of fire, older than the gods themselves, walking forward with flames spreading out ahead of every single step he took, a sword burning brighter than the sun he had just helped extinguish. I want to slow down here, because in all of that, the wolves, the fire, the flood, the end of everything, there's one part of the story that matters more to me than all the rest. Beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, the same tree the Norns sat beneath, the same tree that held up all 9 worlds, there was a well. Some called it the Well of Wisdom, and the well was kept by someone called Mimi. Mimi wasn't a god of war, or storms, or fire. He didn't fight. He didn't conquer anything. He wasn't even one of the great gods most people built temples to. What Mimi kept, in that well, beneath that ancient tree, was wisdom, real wisdom, the kind that costs something to have, the kind you cannot simply be given. Odin wanted it. Of course he did. He was already the wisest of all the gods, and even he knew, in his bones, that he wasn't wise enough. Not for what was coming. So he traveled to that well himself and asked Mimi to let him drink from it. And Mimi told him the price. Not gold, not power, not a sacrifice of someone else. An eye, his own. Odin gave it, without hesitation, from what the old stories tell us. He plucked out his own eye with his own hand and let it sink down into that water, into the dak, and in exchange, he understood things no living being ever had. He saw the shape of what was coming, written in the water, like a reflection of something not yet arrived. He saw RAGNARÖK itself, long before the first crack in the world appeared. That's the kind of god Mimi was. Not one who took, one who asked a fair price, and gave something real and lasting in return. Now, Odin was never short of wisdom in his life. He had ravens, 2 of them, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, who flew across all 9 worlds every single day and whispered back everything they'd seen. He traveled to giants older than time itself just to win riddle contests for answers. He raised the dead from their graves more than once, just to ask them what they knew that the living didn't. He was restless. He gathered wisdom the way some people gather wealth, constantly, from everywhere, never quite satisfied. But Mimi was different. Mimi wasn't one voice among many. Mimi was simply his. And that closeness, is exactly what got him killed. Long before any of this, before RAGNARÖK, before the wolves, before any of it, there was another war. The first great war the gods ever fought, between 2 families, the Izu, Odin's own people, and the Vani, a different family of gods entirely, tied to growing things, to the harvest, to the kind of life that comes from soil and patience rather than conquest. Neither side could beat the other. The war went on, with no end in sight, until both sides grew tired enough of it to finally talk instead of fight. They agreed to peace. But peace between gods who have spent years trying to destroy each other isn't built on words alone. It has to be built on something neither side can simply walk away from. So they exchanged hostages. Each side sent some of their own to live among the other, as living proof that the truce would hold. If the peace broke, the hostages' lives were the price. The Izu sent 2 of their own to live among the Vani. One was Hono, tall, striking, every inch the picture of someone fit to lead. The Vani were pleased with him at first glance. He looked exactly like what a peace offering should look like. The other was Mimi. Here's the part that matters. Hono, on his own, had almost no judgment of his own to offer. He needed Mimi beside him constantly, whispering counsel, guiding his answers, because without that voice in his ear, Hono simply had nothing to say. When the Vani brought matters before their councils, and Mimi stood close enough to advise him, Hono spoke with real wisdom, judged fairly, said things worth hearing. The Vani respected him for it. But the moment Mimi wasn't standing there, if he'd stepped away, if he was elsewhere in the hall, Hono would simply fall silent or give the same unhelpful answer every time. Let others decide. Nothing more. Just that, over and over, whenever the one voice keeping him wise wasn't close enough to hear. The Vani noticed. Of course they noticed. And they began to believe they'd been cheated, given a hollow figurehead to look at, an empty gift, while the real value of the bargain, the actual wisdom, never truly belonged to them at all. They thought the Easy had tricked them, given them a shell, and kept the substance for themselves. They were wrong about why, but they weren't wrong about what they were seeing. Mimi's wisdom was real, but it was quiet. It didn't announce itself. It didn't need to be seen to be valuable, the way Hono's appearance had promised something it then couldn't deliver on its own. And the Vani, watching a beautiful, empty figure fall silent again and again whenever his quiet companion wasn't close enough to help him, came to a single, furious conclusion: we have been deceived. So in their anger born from a misunderstanding, not from anything Mimi himself had ever done wrong, they beheaded him and sent his head back to Odin as a message. A warning, maybe, proof that they would not be made fools of. Not buried, not even given the dignity of being whole. A wise man who had asked for nothing, who had only ever given counsel freely and quietly, who had never once tried to deceive anyone, lost his life because his value couldn't be seen without someone standing beside him to carry it. And Odin, who could have grieved, could have raged, could have simply let that wisdom be lost the way everything else eventually is, refused to let it go. He preserved that head with herbs and old magic, spoke words over it that kept it from decaying, and from that day on, he kept Mima's head close, spoke to it, asked it things, listened. And here is the part of this story that means the most to me. Right before the end, right before Ragnarök actually began, before the wolves broke free, before the horn was sounded calling every god to that final field, Odin went to Mima's head one last time. Not to ask if he could win. He already knew he couldn't. He went to lean down, close, the way you might lean toward someone you trust completely, and ask for whatever truth was left to hear. One final piece of counsel, from the one voice he had carried with him, unbroken, through everything, through a war, through a peace built on hostages, through a death that should never have happened, through centuries of carrying a head that the rest of the world had already decided was worthless without a body attached to it. We don't know exactly what Mimi told him. The old stories don't say. Maybe it wasn't even words. Maybe it was just the comfort of being heard one last time by someone who had never once mistaken his quiet for emptiness. But Odin listened, and then he rode out anyway. Even in death, Mimi kept giving. Even with no body left, still asked, still answered. A voice that outlasted everything that had been done to silence it, everything that had been done to misjudge it. A voice Odin trusted enough to seek out one final time, even with the end of the entire world already bearing down on him. Out of every god in this rune's story, every god in mine, that's the one I'd choose to stand beside. Not because he was the strongest, not because he won anything, or conquered anything, or ever once raised a hand in anger. Because he was the one worth preserving, the one voice Odin never had to share. The one misjudged by an entire family of gods who couldn't see his worth without someone else standing in front of it, and the one he refused to walk into the end of the world without hearing one last time. But preservation wasn't enough to stop what was coming. Nothing was. Not even Odin's wisdom, bought at the cost of his own eye. Not even one final word from Mimi, leaned into and heard with everything he had left. The gods rode out to meet it anyway. The Einherjar marched beside them. Every warrior gathered and trained across centuries in Valhalla's halls, finally called to the one battle they had always been promised. Heimdall, the watchman who never slept, blew his great horn, Galahorn, and the sound of it reached every corner of every world, calling everyone, gods, giants, the living and the dead, to the great plain of Vijaya, where it had always been foretold the final battle would be fought. They went not because they thought they'd win. They already knew they wouldn't. Odin had known it for centuries, sitting on his throne, watching it come. They went because some things you face even when you already know exactly how they end. Because showing up, even to a battle already lost, is its own kind of meaning. Odin rode against Fenrir, the wolf he himself had once helped raise as a pup, once trusted, once bound only out of grim necessity rather than cruelty, because the prophesies had always said this wolf would be the end of him. Fenrir's jaw stretched wide enough to swallow the sky itself, and he swallowed Odin whole, the highest of all the gods gone in a single moment, after centuries of preparing for exactly this. Odin's own son, Vaya, avenged him in the same breath, tore Fenrir's jaws apart with his bare hands and a single great boot, ending the wolf where it stood. Thor faced Jormungandr, the serpent he had hated his entire long life, the one creature he had been destined to fight since before either of them could remember why. He killed it. He actually killed it, drove his hammer into it again and again until the serpent that had circled the whole world finally broke and died, the flood it had carried with it finally stilling. And then Thor took 9 steps away from the body, victorious, and the venom that had already soaked into him during the fight finally caught up with him, and he fell where he stood, dead beside the thing he'd just defeated. Freya, who had given away his own magic sword years earlier for love, for a giantess he could not live without, faced Surtur's burning blade with nothing in his hands at all, and burned. Tyr, who had once sacrificed his own hand to bind Fenrir in the first place, faced the hound Garma, and the two of them killed each other in the same breath, neither outliving the other by more than a moment. And Loki, bound for so long, furious for so long, finally broke free entirely and found Heimdall in the chaos, the two of them enemies since the very beginning of everything, and they ended each other there on the field. 2 old grudges finally settled the only way they ever could be. Fire spread across everything Surtur touched, and there was nowhere left untouched. The sea, already risen with Jormungandr's flood, rose further still, Yggdrasil itself shuddered down to its very roots, the same roots that held Mime as well, the same tree the Norns had always sat beneath, weaving fates no one could escape. The world that had stood since the beginning of everything came apart exactly the way Odin had always known it would, down to the smallest detail he had seen written in the water all those centuries before. And that's usually where people stop telling the story. The fire, the flood, the end. But that's not actually the end. Because the world didn't just die. It sank beneath the sea. Yes, burned. Yes, but it rose again. Green, new, quiet. The old stories say the earth came up out of the water a second time. Field growing where nothing had grown before. Waterfalls running clean. An eagle flying low over the new rivers looking for fish, the same as it ever had. A few of the gods survived, or returned. Balder, the one whose death started all of it, all those centuries before, came back from the underworld at last, walked the new green world together with the brother who had killed him without ever meaning to, and they remembered everything, every part of it, including the parts that hurt. And two humans, Lif and Lifthrisu, a man and a woman, had hidden themselves inside Yggdrasil itself the whole time, sheltered deep within the one thing in all 9 worlds that held strong enough to survive the very end of everything. The fire never reached them. The flood never reached them. When it was finally over, they came out into the new, quiet world, and they began again. Every person who came after them, the old stories say, came from those two. So when I say Ragnarök is truth wearing a story's clothes, this is what I mean. Not that the wolves were real, exactly, or the fire, or the flood, but that this is what happens. Things we love die, sometimes by accident, sometimes through nobody's fault at all. Things we trust eventually break. Sometimes everything falls apart at once, altogether, and there is no stopping it once it starts, only meeting it, the way the gods did, knowing exactly how it would end and walking toward it anyway. And after, something always comes back. Quieter, different, changed by what it survived, but it comes back. That's why I wanted you to understand Mimi before anything else, before the wolves, before the fire. Not the war, not the ending, the well. Because in the story I come from, what survived the longest wasn't strength, or fire, or even the gods who fought the hardest. It was what was worth keeping, what someone refused to let go of, even when everything else was already lost. A voice misjudged once, by people who couldn't see its worth, and never misjudged again by the one person who mattered most. I think that's worth remembering. Whatever any of us are keeping safe in this room today, I think that's worth remembering too.
Everyone stays exactly where you are. We are locking down the perimeter around this room. Nothing comes in, nothing goes out. You are safe here. We are going to find out what happened. Main field ruptured at the source. Plinth 4, the drift. The 0.5% I called nothing. It wasn't nothing. I was wrong.
Glibnura.
I'm not looking for absolution, James. I'm looking for a fix. There's a difference, and right now only one of them is useful.
The individual containment fields are holding. For now.
For now. They are taking damage every second those 4 keep fighting them. I don't know how long now actually means. And the rupture sent something out. A frequency, teleportation signature, strong enough to broadcast well beyond the system.
Sent it where?
I don't know. I don't know who's listening, or if anyone is. That's not the problem in front of us right now. The problem in front of us is 4 gods trying to break through fields that are failing, and a 5th one who isn't fighting at all. I need both of you, not to forgive me, to help me fix this.
You'll have it. No one in this room is interested in blame, Glibnura, only in what happens next.
James walks toward the plinths, his focus on Mimir. Mimir looks back at him. There's something in that look. Knowledge James doesn't have. Understanding that goes beyond the chaos in the room. Something old, something certain.
Can you help us?
Mimir says nothing, he simply nods. Gorgazama watches the nod pass between James and Mimir. Glibnura doesn't hesitate. She uses the console and releases the plinth seal, Mimir's containment field alone. The field around Mimir dissolves. He steps down from the plinth, slow and deliberate. He looks around the museum hall. The marble floor, the 4 other plinths still straining and flickering with violent light. And something in his expression shifts, not fear, genuine disorientation.
Legs, right. I remember these being more cooperative in my day. Where am I, actually?
It is the year 3030. You are on Aethyriones, a colony world. You were brought here as an artifact, contained, alongside 4 others. The containment failed a few minutes ago. That is why you are free, and why they are not. We released you because of what we just watched happen between you and him. We don't yet know what that means, but I trusted it enough to act on it.
Where is my
Slaves.
You have interesting secrets, don't you? Oh, vain one.
Debris detected. Clean sweep initiated. Clean sweep completed.
We need to act fast. That's going to escalate. I will activate the main field around them. I need a few seconds.
Let me do what I do best.
The god stops their fighting for a moment. Some look at Mimir, and some are just exhausted, the pure result of the conflict.
The well knows how to bend itself to the currents of power, for it recognizes my purpose. I offered myself to negotiate.
Mimir turns away from the well and faces the 4 gods. His body begins to change. His human form gives way to something far older. Stone spreads across his skin. His frame grows higher, broader, heavier. In moments, the old man has become the towering stone giant he truly is.
This ends now. Drink from my well, and let peace prevail.
Slowly the fury leaves them. Mimir says nothing more. He turns slowly, then gestures towards the well, silently reaffirming the offer he has made. Behind him, the 4 gods get up and remain together, not fighting, thinking, deliberating. The museum falls silent once more. Without hesitation, he walks towards the main containment field. He passes through it effortlessly, just as he entered. Mimir's stone form begins to recede. Rock gives way to flesh.
That was awesome.
Behind them, the 4 gods continue talking among themselves, not as enemies, but as equals searching for another path. No one forced them to kneel. Mimir offered nothing more. What came next, each of them chose. And the well does not lie, it does not flatter, it only shows what is already true. He sees everything he ever made, every world, every river, every living thing, and none of it is looking at him. They grew, changed, became things he never planned. A river he carved has carved its own stone since. A creature he shaped has built cities he never imagined, buried its dead, sung songs he never gave them. They never needed him, not since the first moment. Creation was never ownership. The moment something lives, it belongs only to itself. For the first time, Orva understands what he actually gave them, not property, life. The well takes her somewhere small, not a battlefield, not a hunt. A single moment repeated, the last second of every life she ended for sport. Not the kill, the moment before it. A creature drinking from a stream, someone turning back before the distance took them, a thought that would never finish. She had never looked. She looks now. She cannot count them. She never thought of them as things worth counting. Not prey, not trophies, simply interrupted. Panthea does not weep, but something in her goes very, very quiet, and the restlessness that has driven every thoughtless act of her existence stills. The well takes him somewhere he has been before, inside a mind, not someone else's, his own. He feels it before he understands it, something moving through his thoughts without asking, reaching into memories he's never spoken aloud. This is what he has done to every mind he's ever entered. He has never once asked, he simply entered, took what he wanted, left. The well shows him the moment each of them realized they were not alone in their own mind. That look repeated. Natal rises from the well, a different kind of quiet than Panthea. not stilled, reckoning.
We saw everything. It was broadcast to all of us, every moment of it. What you did to each other out there, that violence, is unprecedented. It is not the standard we hold ourselves to. We do not seek conflict. We seek peace. If you cannot offer us that, you should leave.
I am asking, not announcing, not declaring, asking, if I may remain on this planet and begin again. Near your colony, not above it, not over it, near it. I want to build something that doesn't need me to survive. I want to do what I should have done the first time.
I will join him. I understand minds. I want to help build beings who have minds that are entirely their own, inner space that no one can enter without asking. I know what I took from people. I want to spend what remains of my existence giving something back.
You were inside my mind before I understood what privacy was. You read things I had never said aloud to anyone, things I had barely said to myself. You took them without asking, and you left without acknowledging what you had done. I spent my entire existence learning to guard my own thoughts because of what you made me understand. That nothing inside me was safe. That the only space I truly owned could be entered at any moment without my permission. You have drunk from the well. You know now what you did, what it felt like. And you are standing in this room asking for something from people you once took everything from without asking. I will not give you forgiveness. I will not give you comfort. What you did to me cannot be undone by a bow or a well or a room full of witnesses. But I will say this. The fact that you are standing here accepting this without reaching into a single mind in this room to make it easier for yourself, that is the only thing you have done in my presence that I have respected.
Natal says nothing. There is nothing to say.
I killed without looking. I took lives because the distance made it easy and the boredom made it convenient. I never once asked what I was ending. I know now. I cannot unknow it. I am not asking you to forget what I was. I am asking if I may spend what comes next being something different. I want to protect this colony, train your warriors, build something with you instead of taking from you. I am asking for the chance to be worth something to the beings I once would not have looked at twice.
I hear you, and I accept that you came here and said it. But forgiveness is not something I can give you today. What you took from me doesn't disappear because you asked. Maybe one day, not yet. But I will watch what you do next, and that will tell me more than any words spoken in this room.
I have been many things across a very long existence. A keeper, a counselor, a resource, a head in a jar. I have never, until today, been asked what I wanted to be. I want to be here, among you. Not above you, not consulted in secret, not preserved for one person's use. Here, fully, as one of you. You built something I have never seen before in all my years of keeping wisdom. A place that means what it says. I give myself to that, completely. Whatever you need of me, ask. I will answer.
In the year 3030, on a world called Aethyriones, a colony built on the belief that all living beings are equal, welcomed 5 ancient artifacts into their care. They did not know what they were truly bringing home. 5 gods, bound to 5 objects, woke from a sleep that should have held them forever. 4 of them fought. One of them walked into the center of it and simply said, "Enough." A man who had spent his life studying ancient stories watched the oldest story of all play out in front of him, and a colony of 200 beings of every species, every age, every world held their ground, not with weapons, not with force, with everything they believed in. 3 gods found a new path. One walked away into the unknown, and the Keeper of Wisdom, who had spent centuries preserved in a jar, consulted by one, finally found a place that asked him what he wanted to be. He said he wanted to be here, among them, as one of them, and 200 voices rose as one and told him he already was. With love, always with love. Lady-Ava's Tales.